We've got another look at one of the other war scrolls for the new edition of Age of Sigmar, and also a new Skaven model, which is the updated Warlock Engineer. And I have to say, he looks utterly fantastic. It is just a brilliant, updated new design of that old classic model. I really love how they have made, from the ones we've seen anyway, these new Skaven kits look so good and detailed and impressive, while still having that, scabby, mucky, Skaven-y look that you would expect from a race of rat men. It's got that wonky telescope, it's got that technology that looks like it's about to explode any second, and the tattered, ripped robes. It does just look very grimy and mucky and dirty and kind of diseased and verminous, but it still looks really fantastic and impressive and like the new gorgeous models that AOS has always had. The whole range really does look like it's just going to be stunning to build and put together and paint and have on the table. And I think despite taking a long while, it does feel as though this range refresh and update and all the new kits we're going to be getting will finally drag the Skaven out of the gutter and onto a par with the rest of the, let's be honest, pretty much unanimously gorgeous AOS designs. We did also get to see his Warscroll, which gave us a few other little tidbits into the 4th edition and the game itself as well. But on the Engineer, he is 5 health, he's got a 5-up save and a 6-inch move, which is pretty much exactly as it is now. He is currently, I believe, I don't know the Skaven rules all that well, but I think anyway, a 1-cast wizard. That appears to be changing. It doesn't look like he has any spell casting now, and they are instead turning him into this more dedicated sniper character. His musket is a nice 24-inch range, and it fires 2 shots that hit and wound on 3s. It's got 2 rend, and it does D3 damage, and it also has a new rule that we're being shown, which is the crit auto wound rule. And as you may expect from the name, this is sort of like lethal hits in 40k, and means on a hit roll of a 6, he doesn't need to roll to wound, it just automatically wounds. So I think they are definitely changing how you use him, and whilst he can't cast spells anymore, which is a shame, it does seem like he is going to be a lot killier with his fancy new musket. And you can actually buff his shooting as well with a reaction, which you do after you've declared you are shooting with him. And this I really like because it also plays back into the unreliability of the Skaven technology. There is always a risk to their shooting. But if he hasn't moved this turn, he has an ability called More Warp Energy, and you can roll a d6, and on a 2+, the musket becomes flat 3 damage, but on a 1, he instead takes d3 mortal damage. Now, as far as Skaven technology goes, that isn't a huge risk. I would probably be doing it every round I was shooting, as long as I wasn't on my last couple of wounds, but it is still a risk. It's just one that I think is worth taking. And that is because turning D3 damage into a flat 3 is a huge boost overall. Turning D3 into a flat 2 is very much do you want the reliability, but you are losing the maximum threshold, but you are also avoiding the potential 1. So D3 to 2, I think, is more of sort of a weighing up the worthiness of it change. Just changing it to flat 3, though, is just a big boost. And I think he actually seems rather good. He can potentially chunk off a decent amount of health from an enemy. And then, as you would expect, he's also not a shabby character hunter. And that is because doing 3 damage per shot with 2 shots means he can potentially kill characters that are sort of his level. Those 5 health characters with a 4 or 5-up save, they are going to be quite vulnerable to him. But on top of that, he gets a once per turn ability, which is called Sniper Master. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to choose an enemy hero, and then until the end of the turn, any Warplock Jezzails, which are wholly within 13 inches, which is a really big aura, they get to ignore an ability which we get shown, which is called Guarded Hero. Now there's 2 things to unpick here. Firstly, it does seem that we have confirmation now that the wholly within restriction that has been present in AOS for a while now, that isn't the same in 40k. In 40k, it's generally just you have to be within 12 inches so you can daisy chain your units out. AOS is a lot more restricted and you have to have your whole unit within that range. And I've always liked that. I think it makes more sense that you can't kind of buff one model in a unit and then everything in the unit, even if it's an extra 10 inches away, gets it. You do have to be sort of huddled up around within the range to get it. but a 13-inch aura is a very, very big one, and you can cover a good amount of the battlefield with this guy. So if you wanted to get a load of Warplock Jezzails in range to get this buff, you definitely can do. But the other thing is what Guarded Hero does. Guarded Hero seems to be like the current Lookout Sir and is that kind of rule for 4th edition. It means basically a hero in range of a friendly non-hero unit is -1 to be hit by shooting attacks, and if that hero is an infantry model, they can't be targeted at all unless the enemy shooting them is within 12 inches. So it's very similar to what we know at the moment, but it is going to be great at keeping those squishier foot heroes alive for a bit longer. And even your mounted heroes on horses and that kind of thing, although they won't get the benefit of not being targetable, they still get the -1 to be hit, so it will help them live a little bit longer. The rule does state that it doesn't work for monsters and war machines, so your really big stuff like stuff on dragons or really big monstrous mounts won't get it. But for your squishier heroes, your foot heroes and your sort of horse heroes, they will get a little bit harder to kill with this rule, which is really nice. And the fact that this guy and a few units around him can ignore it is, I think, going to make this guy quite a solid pick. He himself, with his 2 attacks, can potentially do a good bit of work into lighter heroes with that ranged profile. As I said, it might not necessarily one-shot anyone, but if you are using his more warp energy rule, he can definitely put a few wounds off to enemy heroes, and even those with a decent 3-up save will be pushed back to a 5-up, and then if you get that flat 3 damage, it's not outside the realms of possibility that you could kill a squishier hero in a single shooting phase. But then of course any Jezzails near him in that fairly large 13-inch aura, they can also target those heroes. So even if your engineer doesn't manage it, the Jezzails can potentially finish off an enemy hero, and if their shooting stays in any way the same, they are going to be quite a scary prospect because they come in squads of 3 at the moment and they're only 1 shot each, but that is still 3 shots from a single unit, and they hit and wound on 3s with -2 rend and 2 damage. So if they stay in any way similar, you can definitely fit a few squads around the engineer, and you really can snipe out a few key enemy heroes over the course of a couple of turns, and potentially that could ruin a big part of your opponent's battle plans. Overall, I really love this model, and I think the Warscroll is really interesting, and as we've seen from some of the others, it's much more simplified and kind of cut down, but I think that's a good thing. I think it's going to be really fun to see this guy on the battlefield and to see just how much damage he and some accompanying Jezzails can do. I can't wait to see the rest of the Skaven range and update and redesign, and I also can't wait to see how the rest of the rules start to shake out in terms of how competitive stuff is. But as always, I'd really love to know what you make of his model and his rules. Let me know all of your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later guys.